Can we just stop the cameras for a minute? Let John enjoy the cocktail.
This is Throwback Thursdays, and I'm Tim Blanks, and today we're visiting one of fashion's most famous turning points. You may want to share it with your friends. It may even turn you to subscribing to the Style.com channel. I'm talking about the Haute Couture show for Christian Dior for fall 1999, which went down in history as John Galliano's Matrix collection. When you hear that, you assume it's going to be something futuristic and dystopian, which is why it's really interesting to actually take a good long look back at it, because you realize there was a lot more going on. Fashion seems to thrive on novelty, but it also loves a lot of the same old, same old. And this was one moment when the same old seemed to get a good kick in the butt. The show really needs to be placed in the context of Galliano's career, because up until this point, he'd been creating these steadily escalating spectacles, the clothes becoming more and more extravagant, the sets becoming more and more extravagant, culminating in him filling an old steam train full of supermodels, basically recreating the story of Pocahontas, which I think struck people at that time as too much. So when we got an invitation to the new show at Versailles, the assumption was it was going to be more of the same.
King Louis XIV and Galliano for Dior, what could be better?
But actually, we couldn't really have been farther from the truth on that one. Instead of Galliano's usual maximal set, there was a long, silvery strand of catwalk that looked a little bit like a waterbed. And then when the models started coming out, right away you were in a different place from where Galliano had been. I can see why people reference the Matrix, because it had that feel, that sort of urban warrior feel. Extraordinary in an haute couture collection, remembering who the clientele for these clothes was and how much they cost. And I think people felt that this was Galliano responding to people who'd been criticizing him for just going so over the top. What was the running narrative on this collection?
New direction, things, very different pattern cutting to things that had gone before. Of course, there were some sort of things which are classic John, but really trying to recapture sort of an essence of London. Those hats, inspired by 17th century Dutch paintings, still lives. I love doing them.
As the show wore on and it moved through these very futuristic, asymmetrical, anarchic outfits, the clothes did eventually sort of transmogrify into a more traditional couture beauty, the beauty that we were used to from Galliano. But then it would switch back again into this very hard-edged, aggressive, almost Amazonian feel. So we have Giselle, we have Shirley Moorman, and a number of other women who were just made to wear these clothes and made to stomp and wear their body paint and their feathery headdresses. These women looked like they were ready for a kind of battle.
Entertaining. I think Star Wars 5 could use some of those outfits.
It was a very, very clever move on Galliano's part, because not only did he address the critics, but he did reposition Dior's couture for the new century. He managed to straddle tradition and then bring in this sort of subversive element, like, this is what I was, this is what I will be. That's why I think the show went down in history as a real moment when something new seemed to happen. Carmen Cass, coming on the catwalk at the end of the show, holding her big red parachute, looked so formidable. It was a grand finale in more ways than one. Did that strike you as a great moment? The books will tell you it was, but how does it stand up? This is Throwback Thursdays. I'm Tim Blanks.